And welcome to Spore War After the War. This is our analysis and retrospective series following each episode of Spore War, our Pathfinder 2nd Edition actual play being hosted on the Dungeon Scrawlers channel, where we get to dissect and delve into each episode as it occurs and take a moment to celebrate the moments we enjoyed, ask questions of the things that we were curious about, and pull back the curtain and share with the audience watching how we made some of the decisions we did, some of the technical challenges that might arise, and just share the production and joy of creating an actual play series. My name is Jason Collins. I am a freelance comic book writer, tabletop roleplay game designer, actual play producer, and streamer. And you can find links to all of my published work, my fantasy comic Thistle, and links to the other actual play series that I have participated in on Dungeon Scrawlers on my link tree at digital_Collins. And I am proud to introduce the game runner for Spore War, Matt.
Hi, thanks, Jason. I am Matt.
We just finished part 2 of Prelude 1 of Spore War, the series of introductory adventures that you have written leading up to the start of the Spore War Adventure Path series, which is a level 11 and up adventure path. So it is steep and complex, and it's given us time, as we've talked about before already, to meet our players, meet their characters, and for them to discover the Pathfinder 2nd Edition system for those that have never encountered it before, which is most of them, and warm up, essentially, both
That's right.
Your muscles as game master and game runner, warm them up as players, warm up the character interactions and the bonds they've formed, and shake loose the jitters and the newness of it, and just have a good time doing it, and throw in some really fun moments before the stakes are really high, and they can maybe afford to make a mistake or two along the way before it gets to be very serious. So how do you feel now that you finished Prelude 1, the 2-part series, because we extended it out a little bit? How do you feel now that we've got that one in the books and done, and now we're kind of underway at this point?
Yeah, I felt that this one was not as strong as the first. I discussed with the players beforehand. I was going through some a fairly crappy day leading up to it. I think part of being a game master for an at-home game or any other game is you're going to have good days and bad days. This is never your full-time job, and there are going to be moments where you have to rely heavily on the players to carry the day and help entertain each other rather than rely on what you've prepared. This was also a session where things didn't really go the way I had anticipated they might, for a couple of different reasons. And so letting the players run their own way is really important. So I think that went all right. But it was interesting. We'll talk about a little later about some of the things that just never came to light. And sometimes things just they forget to search for treasure. They forget to investigate things where clues were dropped, and that's totally okay. It happens in every game. But I still had fun, and I hope they did too. I think they did.
Yeah, I can assure you that just watching from behind the scenes, where I didn't have to be on stage and have to sort of make sure that I was keeping everything moving, that for the most part, it seemed like everybody was having a really good time. Lots of great reactions, lots of, little bit of eyes wide and mouths open as things were revealed. And especially towards the end, as much as you might feel that it was a shaky session, or you didn't feel 100% yourself, which we can talk about in a moment. But I can tell you that we stuck the landing, and that some of the reveals you gave them at the end it impressed me. I'm quite certain it impressed the players as well, which was really, really good. But just diving into what you're saying a moment ago about just when you're not 100%, you got to run a game, even just a home game, where there's no pressure of cameras and lights and audio and all that kind of stuff. it's tough. And as a player, sometimes you're just not in it that day. You might be happy to see your friends. You might just be wishing you could stay home alone in the dark and just kind of, have some decompression time and not have to worry about that. I have had those days myself, even at our private home table that we have. There's just when the week or the day has been just busy and heavy, you're just like, it's like a social commitment, and I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to just be able to retreat into my own mind.
Mm.
But you and I've talked about this before about, and you've expressed this to me yourself personally, how much you look forward to our weekly table sessions, and how much they can mean after a heavy or busy day.
Oh yeah.
Even if you're having to be the game master, even if you're the one responsible for kind of steering the content that night, a good table hopefully has players that help carry that load and engage already. But I can express as well that it has also lifted my mood after I've gotten there, especially when we share some laughs and we have some fun and unwind a bit and recognize the importance of spending time with people that you know and love and actually want to spend time with. And so with the actual plays, as our bonds with these new players grow, and as the hopefully the bonds with the community grows as well, our audience could be having a lousy day and they're like, oh, I really want to see this series, but I'm not feeling it tonight. I don't know if I want to watch it. But sometimes by watching it and seeing familiar faces and people that you have a bit of a connection with, or at least through the storytelling that they're doing, sometimes that can lighten their mood as well. And so, not that we're here to attest for anyone else's mental health or to cheer up the audience. I can also say that sometimes being if you a lot of your content is online, it can make a huge difference when a cast or a show or a story that you really enjoy is there for you when you need it the most as well.
Yeah.
And that's reading a lot into the tea leaves, so to speak. But I know that can sometimes make a big difference to people, and the communities that people form around actual plays and around creative communities in general can mean the world to us, especially when the world outside is leaning on us a lot.
Yeah, this gives me two things I'd like to talk about. One is you and I are both passionate about RPGs as a collaborative storytelling um, measure. Like it's for me, it's my main creative outlet. I know that you have others, but with my career, this is the main creative outlet that I have. And I think it's important to acknowledge that we're really privileged, not just in this actual play with the quality of players that we've managed to get to sign up for this, but in our home game, we have an amazing group of players who make it a priority to show up on Thursdays, regardless of mood. Because it's the analogy I use, and they're all creative, they're all equal participants. They're great. They're a great crew. And the analogy that I use, I may have mentioned it last time, I don't recall, is RPGs are kind of like community theater, where you have a small audience and you have, um, at your own tabletop. It only works if people make it a priority to show up. You may have someone in second chair ready to run a pickup game, but you don't, if enough people are not committed, it's going to fall apart pretty quickly. But it is collaborative storytelling. It is a creative outlet. You need to do it because it's what keeps you sane or engaged or creatively expressive or whatever it is that draws you to these games, or just for the social aspect alone. It's so important. And so, and like community theater, it may not have draw the big crowds, but this actual play, obviously I'm not anticipating a huge crowd for my first attempt at running one of these, but it is it is different than the home game in the sense that there's at least a few more people who are going to watch it than are participating. But even if you just have a table of 5 or 6 people, just knowing that you're all working together to tell this story and to entertain each other and to laugh and to be social, it can be really healing for people who are missing out on aspects of their life where you're not getting that creative expression or they're not getting that social engagement. I really appreciate it in my life, anyways.
And I agree 100%. I'm going to segue for 1 second. We had some technical challenges tonight during the second recording of the second
Yes.
episode, and to be fully transparent with our audience, who has been watching the first 8 minutes of you and I chatting, but only hearing your voice, because what did I not do? I didn't unmute my mic on the software, so the voice to text chat has been running. They've been probably catching most of what I said, but they didn't hear me saying it. And as you were talking, and I look down and I see the little mute icon is lit, and I'm just like, you absolute idiot! What are you doing? But
Well, actually, I have the audio recording again.
you do, and we can use that. But actually
Yeah.
tonight I quite enjoy sharing the face plant that I made, just
Yeah.
because it's one of those things where they'll be checking their audio, like, well, I
Yeah.
can hear Matt. Jason's talking. Why am I not hearing him? And then it's not your audio, it's not your computer, it's all on me, Mr. Producer, running the show. Click the damn button. So behind the scenes and sharing the technical challenges as they happen, the good and the bad. It just made me laugh, because I'm just like, of course I did. Of course I didn't hit the damn button again. Apologies for that, for the disjointed start, but sometimes we'll just let the warts stay where they are, and we just move on with it as we go. But yeah, getting back to that piece, that these are new players to us. We don't know what's going on in their personal lives. They all have been a joy to spend time with in the time we've been there, but you never know how much they're looking forward to it as well, because it could be their one major creative outlet for the week, or whatever it happens to be as well. And so that can make a huge difference, where they know they've got a moment in time where they get to set aside all the other heavy stuff we deal with on our day to day, and just have some fun and play some role playing games, as you say.
I quite like them. I mean, I feel very lucky in that immediately there was a great connection. I've quite enjoyed having them at the table, so to speak. But just to go back to the technical glitches, I mean, during the session 0, my video was flickering. I managed to sort that out. Today, Steven had some serious video problems. I think for most of the session, his face is just his title screen, because he had to actually shut off video to maintain
That's right.
connectivity. And who knows what software or hardware problems he was having. He'll sort that out in the next week or so. We've had a couple of glitches like the one you shared, little things like that.
Yep.
Well, mostly what they do is they create extra work for you. So
it's fine. But it's also the learning process, where as you
yeah,
go through these things and through this for their first time. We've talked about, for anybody who might be going through their first actual play, or wanting to start their own actual play, is that there's just lots of little missteps that can happen along the way, but that by going through that and by just being transparent about it, you learn from it and you get better as you go. And this experience as full producer and doing all the recording and editing behind the scenes is only helping strengthen my skills around that as well, to do the best that I can as well. So thank you for everyone for your patience as we navigate those moments. Prelude 1. So you talked about not feeling that this was maybe as strong. Part 2 was not as strong as Part 1 when it comes to Prelude 1. But it was interesting to sort of get into some real role play moments in the episode this time, after some of the action of Part 1 and some of the tactical encounters that we had, and to allow the players to actually start to investigate a bit of a mystery and try and uncover what was happening, and getting to see their reactions to that. And we got a really good use of the dice roller this time, sharing some skills and some skill rolls and some abilities, and being able to share that with the audience as well. I was quite happy with that, because it was a chance to both do the roleplay part of the investigation, but do a little bit of the mechanical dice rolling and sharing of how the dice help us tell a story, and how we use that, and how we share that with the audience in a easy to digest way that they can quickly pick up, regardless of whether they've played Pathfinder Second Edition, regardless if they want to play Pathfinder Second Edition. But we're showing it. We've created it in such a way that it makes it easy for the audience to kind of pick up on some key moments and mechanical roles, and just appreciate that from a pure role player standpoint.
Yeah, I want to comment on just the nature lore checks, because talking about the dice rolls helping to tell the story, the fact that neither of these 7th level druids made their nature lore checks, and none of the players really did either.
That's right.
Throughout the second half of today's session, no one could figure out what was going on based on skills. When people had skills, and everyone rolled terribly, myself included, on behalf of the NPCs, was absolutely unexpected. I had anticipated, well, maybe the druids will be able to figure this out and tell them what's going on if they point them to look in the right places. The players point the druids to look in the right places. Maybe they'll make this go. No, no, they won't.
That's right. And when at the end, as Lex is having a scene with their sponsor, when then asking, "Oh, should I be checking in on these druids? Are they struggling?" And Lex, playing their character Banda, was like, "Well, maybe if you feel like it, but I don't think you're going to get much out of them." I thought such a great nonchalant way of kind of like handling that. Like they're in serious trouble, but like that's not my concern. That's
Yeah,
not what I'm here to do.
that's
And
right.
yeah, I enjoyed that moment and thought that was a great sort of wrap up to that piece.
Should we talk a little bit about what's going on?
So sure, so you know what's going on a little bit more than I do because you've read more than I have in terms of the story. Um, but for those who have now watched Prelude 1 Part 2, which we just finished recording and now sharing after the war with you, um, it's the first hint that there's something wrong in Keonan. The
Yes.
first hint that these ancient sites protected by deep elven magic and literally centuries of knowledge and lore are not immune to corruption.
Right.
And the corruption was almost benign or sort of played a little bit for laughs in this episode, which was fantastic. But there was a little tiny sinister hint to it towards the end that came up, and consequences, which I'll be curious to find out if the consequences follow the players into the next prelude or even later in the series, where the characters' brash actions in trying to eradicate that corruption, left they ended up leaving their own little scar on the land in doing so.
They sure did. Which is unexpected, and I
Yes.
knew it was a possibility, but not necessarily what I thought would be the most likely outcome. Um, the thing about the preludes, it was important to me not only to do a test run of the rules and make sure I'm going to be becoming more and more familiar with the second edition rules as we get deeper into it. I have to sort of hand wave some things because I don't have that deep familiarity with regular use. And the idea is to get to the level 11, start with that brushed up on the 2e rules, um, especially the remastered version. And so I wanted to do that. I wanted to sort of get the technicalities of running an actual play on video sorted out, as you said. I wanted to get the players integrated and interacting. That's all true. But I also wanted to thematically approach the first chapter of the actual published AP materials with having established something that I think the AP materials don't contain, which is just a reinforcement, particularly in the last session where I went through how beautiful Keonan
Mm-hmm.
is. Because it was important to me that the players understand that with the Spore War, what's being lost? What is at threat? And it's not just the peoples of Keonan, but it's also the just incredible natural beauty that is there. That is, a war does leave untold damage and despair, and that's something that you can only really feel if you know what's to be lost in the first place. So
Yes.
that was part of it. I wanted to establish that, but also these creeping tendrils of corruption.
Yeah.
I did want to seed those as well.
And that's the preludes are perfect for
That's
that,
right.
and perfect in the sense that for the audience that's hopefully watching this going on, that we're doing these preludes also not just as level jumps but as a bit of time jump, a little, if and when you ever define how much time may pass between these level jumps. But what it represents though is that this corruption has existed or perhaps remained hidden for a long time,
That's right.
and it's coming out in small pieces here and there. And it's that slow rot that you don't see right away or don't notice right away until it's too late and it's gotten into the foundation.
Right. What's at risk in this prelude is the diminishment or even loss of a small druidic circle that was 6 people strong,
Yeah,
and now it's 3. And will it stay at 3?
yeah.
They were there preserving nature and trying to work with nature, and now they are jeopardized. So yeah, absolutely. And it's, as you say, the small edges of civilization that are noticing the effects right now.
Do you think the players are thinking about that consequence, the loss of the druidic circle and the what role the druids play, as opposed to the, because I think that they had a little bit of a somewhat not dismissive but perhaps short-sighted view of the druids just kind of being stuck in their own world and a little bit too
Mm,
self-absorbed in just their horticulture and what they're doing. And I was thinking about that as the final act of Prelude 1 Part 2 was unfolding. I was thinking about that, like, are they cluing into what's being lost here? Are they going to clue into what risk this puts it? How
Right.
Kionan's put at risk because of these little moments?
And you and I haven't talked about what I'd written for this second half. We talked about the crab
That's
encounter
right.
before.
That's right.
But I would, so I think you were the only one who picked up on that. And I think you were the only one who caught that these druids were rude. They were,
Yes.
um, because they didn't know who these people were,
That's
and
right.
they sought seclusion, and they were interrupted in their day-to-day activities, and because at least one of them brought an unwelcome message. Um,
That's right.
so I think they became hostile to the druids, not hostile in terms of conflict, but in terms of caring about them,
Just
partly based
attitude.
on the characters, but I think partly because they didn't necessarily pick up on that, which may be my fault. Uh, and you know me well enough to have caught on to what I was doing there.
That's right.
Same reason that some of the patrons are rude, not because of anything the players have done, but just because they see them as being of lesser station.
That's right.
The player characters have a choice and true agency in terms of, do I try to develop favor with this patron who's absolutely horrible person, but has the ability to help me out? Or do I say, I'm not working for you anymore?
And you and I have talked about the strength of the adventure paths and some of the great ideas they've come up with, but we've also talked about how sometimes the adventure paths are pretty thin on NPC motivation. And obviously, the sponsors are your creation; they're not part of the Spore War series specifically. But what they do represent is, as a game runner, as a game master, taking that concept of this elder, mentor, sponsor, you know, NPC who is kind of the spark or the initiative of getting a story or an adventure going. But then, and that could be just summarized in one or two lines. They're hiring the PCs for this. They're imploring the PCs to do that. They've the PCs owe them a debt, and so this is how they're going to repay it, whatever it is. But then taking that motivation and expanding upon it in our own writing and our own storytelling to give it a bit more depth, to give them a bit more of an edge or a bit more of a snide or selfish side, to elicit a bit more of an emotional response out of the players. I know how important that can be at the home table, and I know how important it was in the actual plays that I ran as well, to make some of those key NPCs that you really want to evoke an emotional reaction from. You've got to expand upon the sort of the stereotypical personality type or base motivation, and give it a bit of depth, and give them a bit of reality in terms of that they could have their own wants, their own fears, their own desires. They can be short-sighted and careless and all of those things, and then see if the players pick up on that or use that to their advantage.
Yeah, we'll see. Valthorn is not one to forgive an insult,
Right.
and so um, I think Mr. Parr is going to encounter some difficulties down the road if I have my way with respect to. I don't think he did the wrong thing. Valthorn is a terrible human being, or elf, sorry,
Yes.
elven being, um, and but he rather than just fading into the distance, um, JDR's approach was, I don't want to do what you want me to do anymore, which is a dangerous thing to do with someone who's accustomed to getting their way and has the power to make that kind of influence.
And that scene was wrapped up in the midst of some sort of a little bit humorous sponsor conversations and more serene sponsor conversations, that each of them were having that sort of wrap up moment. But there was an edge to the one with Mr. Parr that you were doing with his character JDR. And what I liked about that was because it actually challenged Mr. Parr as the player to really think about the reaction. And then you asked him the question, will that sponsor contact you again? And Mr. Parr paused and didn't have an immediate answer, because he was weighing that, like, what's just happened now? What are the consequences? Is this somebody who's gonna be able to help me again? Do I want them to help me again? And if they do help me again, are they going to put me in danger? It was more sort of reputational danger this first time, but now it could be real danger next time. So there was an edge to that I liked, and I'm not sure how much of that Mr. Parr picked up on, but the fact that it was a darker moment in the midst of some of that more serene or lighthearted wrap up scenes that were happening.
Yeah, I really hope to make those patrons side characters that recur throughout the actual published AP as well.
Yeah, I
Uh,
wondered about that. Yeah.
I plan to integrate them if they survive, and it's, depending on circumstances.
Yes.
But I think building out the cast of characters is always a helpful tool for a GM,
Yes.
for a game runner, in that um, if you need someone to react or to prompt action by the PCs,
Yeah.
whether it's the merchant Serthal who's asking them to do something in the adventure path, or prompting them along if they miss something,
That's right.
or whether it's Valthorn trying to interrupt their activities because he's taking an inopportune time to make JDR pay for having slighted him. Doesn't matter. It gives you a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, it does.
My
And
favorite moment, if you're going to ask me my favorite moment's still the two druids getting a 3 and a 6 on their knowledge nature rolls and flubbing it worse than the players did.
I had that was phenomenal because it was public roll, open rolls. Everybody could see exactly what happened. Gwen as Briala, like, well, it's your island. It's just like the mushrooms you have. You can see the mushrooms, right? You understand what, assuming that and I can sort of sense that was Gwen partially role playing as Briala to like entice them to, well, obviously you know what's happening, but also as Gwen the player, like, just poking them with a stick. You idiots! What are
Yes.
what are you doing? So I agree. That was great for a couple of reasons. I really liked the first holy shit moment, which was the reveal of the giant mushrooms. And when you pulled back the fog of war, which was the great part about getting to use the Roll20 maps for that, so they got the visual, not just you describing it. As from a technical standpoint, I think that's something that I would encourage you to lean into when you're going to do a reveal like that. Do a little bit of a setup to it beforehand, because you can describe it a bit more, describe what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they're smelling before the visual comes, just to kind of like add a bit of weight to it. That can be something. Whereas for game masters who are doing their thing, they're like, oh well, now I described the big secret that you didn't know was there, but to lead the players down the path a little bit more, and maybe set up a bit of trepidation that something is not quite right, and then we discover it. So that was just
fair comment, absolutely. And it was a mistake on my part. It was I revealed too much of the little mushrooms. I'm like, oh well,
sure.
oh well. So it was my intention to do more.
It still got their reaction where they're like, oh, okay, so this is serious now. It's a real problem because Sky as Varen was like, yeah, this fire. It all needs to go to fire. That was the immediate reaction, which I also loved for that reason, because you could tell like Sky was reining it in just a little bit, like, okay, when's the moment? Okay, he stepped away. This is the moment. Kick the fire, and just get the mushrooms going.
Not a bad instinct, but of course the druid's not going to like.
No, and then Sky still solved it without resorting to combat, and still was able to use other sort of skills and abilities to try and diffuse the situation, which I admired that they didn't just immediately allow you. You said we're rolling initiative. Sky could have rolled with that and just simply said, okay, we're going to have a fight over this. But then Sky still tried to treat it as a diplomatic mission and tried to
Perfect.
Yeah, so really great, right? So the player
versatility on the player's part, versatility on the GM's plate. I'm not going to persist with a fight if someone makes a reasonable comment that might end it. I think that went perfectly.
And then then my second favorite moment, and the only other one that I wanted you to stretch it out just a little bit more because it was so good, was the consequences of burning the island and what happened to the plinth and all of that. You described it, and it all just kind of happened at once. And I was just like, that was beautiful. And I could see their faces. We talked the previous after the war session about how I get to watch everyone's faces when you're maybe focused on one player, and they all had the like, holy shit, what did that just happen? And that's where I was like, oh, this is really serious. Like, the magic of the Grove is now diminished or even gone, and that's really serious. But I don't think any of them really caught on. They caught that there was like a change. I don't know if they realized the importance of that. But that was where I wanted you to like, okay, that's such a good one where they do that. And I don't know if that was an improv, if you had to react to that, them choosing to burn the island, if that wasn't something that you had planned for.
Mostly improv. I thought of a couple of different ways that the standing stone might be damaged or destroyed with that consequence, even if they just lots of different ways that could have played out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did not expect necessarily to play out that way.
Yeah. And because Lex stayed behind as Banda to watch the consequences.
I was so glad that happened.
Yes, and so that's where like that's where you did an excellent job of describing like how serious it was and how the fire reacted very negatively. It both consumed the mushrooms, which was the goal, but then had a negative reaction in terms of how hot it burned and the damage that fire caused. And yeah, that's another one where I'd say, yeah, just before you do that, before you talk about that final consequence, stretch it a little bit and talk about how Banda might be feeling it as they're seeing that, because Banda has a pretty close connection to the land with their character, or Lex does, with Banda as the character, and I would love to have had a bit of an emotional consequence for Banda in terms of seeing what this group that they just met and just kind of bonded with and are choosing to stay together with for good or for bad. But they, some serious consequences from that.
I saw the reactions on that one, and I thought what I was thinking internally was we have to be respectful of their drop dead end time, and I don't want to completely abandon the conversations with the patrons.
I hear you.
So that was a editorial choice on my part, but I agree with you. In retrospect, that should have been played out a little longer.
Yeah, even if you just means you have to summarize a couple of the sponsor conversations and not role play it out, depending on where you're going to get your most emotional impact from, right? And this is, as you've said, you delving into the actual play production side and creation side, learning these moments and how to capitalize on them as you go. So,
yeah, I really enjoy the fact that these players can do role playing and enjoy the tactical stuff as well. There's all sorts of moments that that could have been just fallen completely flat, but they engage, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no one is afraid to take the ball when you give it to them and run with it, and I absolutely appreciate that as well, because it does make your job easier. That you don't have to fight along the way to get them to go; that they will go when you ask them to. So,
yeah.
On the one last comment on the tactical side of the Roll20, we had the tokens for the player characters. You had some other sort of top-down isometric type figures for some of the NPCs. They were difficult to see on the map, and so I think going forward, if you're going to use some really specific NPCs that are going to be important to keep tabs of as they move around, you might want to use just a portrait token for those characters as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I may need help sourcing those, because the ones I get through the actually, I think there may be some portrait style. I'll take a look.
Sure. And there might be some stock tokens that even just in Roll20 that we can use. We can dig into that a bit. That could just be generic fantasy faces or whatever, right? That maybe there'll be a couple that we can use there as well.
I think the zoom limit on the Roll20 is also a factor there, in that it wouldn't go close enough to see the detail, because they're quite detailed tokens, but it doesn't play well with the portrait style that and we should credit those were generated by one of the players, the player tokens.
Yep, Lex has generated all the player tokens as art pieces, custom art that Lex created themselves, and then gave to us to use for the show, and it's phenomenal. And it's some of the same art that we're using, that you see in the overlay with the character portraits for the characters and so forth on the overlay. Did an amazing job with them, and so versatile.
Toad is particularly striking. I love that Toad portrait.
Absolutely. I keep waiting for you to have an NPC stop in the middle of the conversation and look right at Toad and say, "What is wrong with your head?"
Yeah, I'm saving that one. I am saving that one.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Because Stephen does such an excellent job of reminding everybody that he's a dwarf with 8 charisma, no beard, and a head shaped like a pumpkin. So at some point that's got to come up, and it's
fantastic.
Yeah. I've been messing with the roll when we switched to the Roll20 overlay. I've been zooming the map in and out a little bit to try and capture as much detail as I can, but also trying to make sure the audience can keep track of where other tokens are. So sometimes I'm zooming back out. I don't know that there's a good or bad. This is again us pulling back the curtain and showing you the production side of it, because I've not used Roll20 effectively in any of my actual plays up to this point. I'm quite enjoying including it as part of the production. But as you say, using the Zoom and sharing of the screens, it's not always ideal in terms of how much we can show the audience for the map, and maybe that's just my inexperience in terms of where to position the map and where to have the focus. It also could depend on the size of the map and how the larger the map, which you did an excellent map for the lagoon, but it was a larger map, so in order to get the scale, sometimes we had to pull back, and so you lose some of the details in doing that.
I do like the larger maps because it allows you to put the players in a situation where they control when the encounter begins, and you control what's revealed. I do like the larger maps for that reason. But part of it is my own limitations, and I think it's important to acknowledge that every GM is going to have strengths and weaknesses, and I might have time to do maps on some weeks and not on others.
Exactly.
And I'm not particularly skilled with Roll20.
Yeah.
I try to help the players tell a good story.
Absolutely.
But that's always my focus, and the rest of it is nice to haves. And I think for people who are running their own home games, it's no different. Sometimes you have time to prepare, sometimes you don't. The players are partly responsible for telling the story too, and so it's a matter of, for this, we're trying to invest some time and effort in it, and so I've made the time to make some of the maps that I'm going to be using and write material to try and get us to. But it's always a compromise of what you'd like to do compared to what you actually have time to.
Totally. With the map you made, though, what I loved about it, and it was a holy shit moment for me, was they continued to separate. And Banda came across the pond and went into the fog of war and came ashore in an area totally separate from the other players. That was another one that I'm like, oh, you need to scare Banda a little bit. You need to like step into something squishy and soft and rotten, and it doesn't feel very good. That's where I'm like, oh, that would have been where I would have like up to the horror factor, and then it's a reveal. Oh, you're just standing in a vegetable garden. No big deal, right? But
that I wish I'd thought of that.
Totally. It came to me.
I'll do it next time if they keep it up.
Right, but I just love that they just dove into the fog of war. Consequences be damned.
I love it. That's a gift right there.
Yeah.
A little bit of player character recklessness that is compatible with their actual nature.
Yes.
Is a gift for a GM. You don't want to abuse it by killing people for the first time.
No, you can't, because they will pull back and be too conservative all the time. But Steven's got that experienced player mentality where he's like yelling at everybody to stay together, and Gwen's like, "Oh, I'm going to go down the path," and Banda's like, "Yeah, I got to get ashore. The shore's right here. I can't. The fog's too thick. The mist is too thick. I'm going across anyway."
It's like candy for a GM.
Very good, very good. Prelude 1 is in the books. Prelude 2 now is around the corner. We're going to level up to 5.
Level 5.
So leveling up to 5 for the characters. So as people tune in for Prelude 2, there's going to be a little bit of a level jump and maybe a small time jump, depending on whether you choose to define that or not, which you don't have to, of course.
I'm not going to define the time jumps.
No,
I'm just
and these are all elves and dwarves with extended lifespans. A few extra years makes no impact on them at all. But I think now that the players have gotten their feet wet and now probably have a much better sense of who their characters are starting to become, it'll be interesting to see what choices they make with their level up and to see what they come to the table with a couple extra levels of abilities and skills and or spells. And are they continuing down the creative sort of eccentric path, or do they add a bit more capability in to survive what comes next?
Yeah. So the next one I'm thinking is going to take place in Green Gold. I had a couple of different rough sketches of plots. I haven't finished what we're going to be doing next time. I'm going to take like puzzle pieces from the ideas I've had, based on what the players enjoy interacting with. And I think the next one's going to be in Green Gold, dealing with getting familiar with Green Gold before the adventure path starts.
Yeah.
A little bit more social, maybe no combat, other than one tactical. I have to be careful about too much content because it drags it out quite a bit.
It absolutely will.
And I want to keep these snappy. So I'm going to try and keep it to one tactically interesting combat and then in some social encounters and try and keep the time down on that second prelude at 5th level. But it gives an opportunity to also feel how they've developed when they're level 11 and their skills are higher and are more socially influential. We're going to do it at level 5 where they have no influence and their skills are
Agreed.
not.
Agreed. And they can botch a whole nother series of diplomatic roles. It'll be fantastic.
Yep, absolutely.
Any final thoughts, observations, questions?
No, I think we covered it all, but I want to extend my thanks again, Jason. This has been a lot of fun.
You're very welcome, and it's been an immense pleasure for me as well. And we hope for the audience watching, it has been enjoyable for you as well. We've appreciated those of you that have already stuck with us on this early part of the journey, and you enjoy the story that's going to come. Reminder, you can join the Dungeon Scrawlers Discord. There should be a link, hopefully, at the bottom of the video, where you can join the community, get information on other episodes and things as they come up, and even arrange watch parties with the rest of the community if people are choosing to tune in as the episodes are aired. Thank you again for choosing to spend some of your time with us. My name is Jason Collins. I am a freelance comic book writer, tabletop role-playing game designer, actual play streamer, and performer. And you can find my published work, my fantasy comic Thistle, and other actual plays that I've worked on my link tree at digital_Collins.
And I'm Matt Fisher, and I'm just here for the love of the game. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.